Did we just witness the end of Robert Whittaker? That's a question that a lot of people are asking after what Dricus du Plessis just did to him. And before you ask me what happened, Dricus du Plessis just obliterated him. He just slaughtered Robert Whittaker in front of his family on live television. That was one of the most brutal finishes I've seen in a while, and it was also a terrible stoppage by the ref. As far as my thoughts on the fight, I thought that Rob was doing great. People are talking about, Rob's washed, Rob's washed. I didn't think Rob was washed. I think Rob went out there and did exactly what he needed to do. I broke it down on this channel, and in my predictions, I said I'm going Robert Whittaker via third round TKO. And it wasn't really looking like Rob was going to get the finish. It wasn't really looking like, as I said, I thought Rob was going to put it on him in the second and third round, but that's obviously not what happened. Rob's game plan really seemed to be just to win on points. He didn't really want to try to finish Dricus, because I think Rob understood that, okay, if I try to finish Dricus, the fight could get nasty if I go for a finish. And if the fight gets nasty, that's where Dricus is most dangerous. So I want to keep the fight as clean and as technical as possible. And I think that's what he tried to do. But, man, Dricus shocked me. Not only did he look massive in the cage against Robert Whittaker, and that's not an excuse, he just went out there and beat Robert Whittaker at his own game. He tried to make the fight clean. Dricus made the fight clean and still won. People are talking about, it's a fluke, it's a fluke. It's not a fluke. Robert Whittaker, that was 100% of Robert Whittaker that night. He looked absolutely amazing before then he got the takedown. Obviously, he got taken down himself, but you have to understand, we can't be sleeping on Dricus. People are saying this is washed Robert Whittaker, not because of anything Rob did. They are only saying this because it's Dricus. If, someone else, a prospect, a good guy, people that the MMA community is hyping up, if someone else went out and put this performance of Robert Whittaker, they wouldn't be saying to the level of, Robert's washed, he's done. Do people not know Robert Whittaker's only 32 years old? Israel Adesanya is almost 34, and Rob is 32. Neither are anywhere near the end of their career. So, like I said, as far as the end of Robert Whittaker, I don't think this is the end of Robert Whittaker at all. I think we're going to see him back in the octagon in, if you ask me to put a gun to my head, I'd say around 10 months until we see Robert Whittaker back inside the octagon. And I think he's going to look better than ever. I think he's going to put a performance on, whoever it is. As far as a prediction for an opponent, they could do Sean Strickland, but at the end of the day, do they really want to do Sean Strickland? What if Robert Whittaker goes out there and beats Strickland? On top of that, I don't think Strickland wants to wait 10 months for a Robert Whittaker fight. I think he wants to get in there with, someone else and get a title fight. I think he's either next in line for the title after Dricus or one more win away from it, I think a rematch with Jared Cannonier isn't a dumb idea, you know what I mean? A fight with Marvin Vettori is not a bad idea. Any of those fights secure him a title fight if he wins, though, so that's something. As far as another prediction for those fights, Sean Strickland versus Jared Cannonier rematch. Both looked incredible. You know what? If Sean it's really about who makes the adjustments in that fight. And I think that with Jared Cannonier's last performance, thinking it was against Marvin Vettori, I don't know. Sean Strickland, ever since people were making fun of his fights for being boring, he's decided, he even talked about it in his post-fight after beating the brakes off of Nasruddin Imavov. He said, I'm gonna start working on throwing more volume, and that's exactly what he went out there and did. He beat up Nasruddin Imavov, put more more work in, goes out there, fights Magomedov, beats the brakes off him, finishes him badly, brutalizes him, so I could see a fight, with Sean Strickland, but at the end of the day, if Robert Whittaker goes out there and beats Sean Strickland, and I would favor him to do so, where does he go from there? I could see Sean dropping him, finishing again, but Robert Whittaker, in my opinion, even after this finish, would still be the guy I'm going with in that fight. I think he'd be able to, just outpoint Sean Strickland and, leg kick him and teep him to the body and really open up those holes in Sean's game where he just kind of plots forwards and he doesn't really defend leg kicks. He doesn't, do too much, I think he tried to make the fight very clean, just as he did with Dricus du Plessis up until the finish. And Sean doesn't have the power of Dricus. He doesn't have the strength or the size of Dricus. Rob would have a huge size advantage over Sean Strickland. So I definitely would favor him in that fight. And I think anyone smart would as well. I don't think this is, like I said, the end of Robert Whittaker. I don't think he's on the decline. People are going to say that only because it's Dricus. It had nothing to do with Robert Whittaker that night. Robert Whittaker went out there and fought an amazing fight. Dricus was the better man. He fought Robert Whittaker at his own game and won. And Robert Whittaker, I've been saying this ad nauseum, Robert Whittaker keeps his hands very low, and someone is going to punish him at some point. And that man was Israel Adesanya the first time, but guess who it was this time? To almost everyone's surprise, including myself, Dricus du Plessis was the man to expose Robert Whittaker for keeping his hands way too low. Robert Whittaker likes to blitz into the pocket. He likes to enter the pocket with his hands low. And Dricus du Plessis punished him for that. Dricus was in the southpaw stance. Robert was an orthodox. Dricus gets the outside foot. Robert tries to approach him, and Dricus drills him with a jab to the face as Robert's hands are in his pockets. He's looking for something, but he's not looking to get into the fight with Dricus du Plessis. He was terrified. He was scared. He felt the power. He felt the takedown, got cut up and beat up in the end of the first round. And his hands were doing everything but protecting himself. Even after he got dropped badly, and he was backpedaling, trying to get away from Dricus, his hands were still low. He had one hand up, but he was turning that side away from Dricus. So the side of his face that was exposed to Dricus as he was kind of backpedaling sideways, he didn't have the hand up. Why do people do this? Charles Oliveira finished Beneil Dariush in the exact same way. Beneil Dariush tries to, just try to circle around, try to get away, kind of just run away from Charles with his hands down. Why do people do this? They get rocked and their hands go down. You get rocked, your hands should be going up. And by the time they put them up, it's always too late. And that's exactly what happened. By the time Robert Whittaker put his hands up, Dricus du Plessis had already brutally finished him. Robert curls up, shells up, and just kind of keeps his guard up against the fence. Dricus starts ripping to the body, ripping to the head. He goes 2 hooks to the body, 2 hooks to the head. On that last hook that lands to the head on the right side of Dricus, left side of Robert, you could see it just completely broke through the guard, landed on the temple, sat Robert Whittaker down for a second time, and Dricus just lands nasty ground and pound, beat the brakes off of him. And in my opinion, this was a horrible stoppage. The fight should have been stopped earlier, but nonetheless, I think Dricus is, going to fight Adesanya next. I don't know about that fight. As far as an early prediction, I'm going Israel Adesanya via decision right now. Could change. I could go Dricus. I'm uncertain. Anything can happen. People are talking about, Izzy's going to dance around him. Rob was supposed to dance around him. What happened to Rob? You know what I mean? But Izzy does have a very underrated chin. I think he has one of the best chins in MMA, and people don't give it the respect that it deserves. But, Dricus goes out there and has a phenomenal fight, a phenomenal performance against Robert Whittaker, exposing his holes in his game. And, fight wraps up. Post-fight, we got to talk about it. Israel Adesanya completely embarrassed himself. That was the most embarrassing post-fight I've ever seen. There was Aljo versus O'Malley. Henry sitting there on the verge of retiring. And if that went on for 5 more minutes, I'm sure Henry probably would say fuck it and retire in the cage right there. Because that was painful watching the whole Aljo O'Malley thing happen. That was so corny. You got Marab stealing the jacket. And dude, you can't make this stuff up. It's turning into the WWE. And I know Dana pretends like he doesn't like it. Dana loves it. Why do you think he continues to do it? You know what I mean? The only time this has ever been done properly is with Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski back in the aftermath of UFC 280, where Islam Makhachev dominated and brutally submitted my favorite fighter, Charles Oliveira. And the reason why that worked out so well is because Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski are some of the most respectful and professional fighters on the entire roster, whereas O'Malley and Aljo, no, Aljo's a nice guy. Aljo was very professional. up until he had another grown man in his face talking shit, you know. But Sean O'Malley's so unprofessional, and Izzy took it to a whole nother level. You know, this has never gone well. You remember when, you know, the UFC, you know, they had Brock Lesnar step in the cage against Daniel Cormier, a fight that never ended up happening. You know, but this was just a disaster. You know, this was a disaster. And honestly, I'm surprised they didn't bring Stipe into the octagon after Jones won at 285. But, you know, this was just a disaster. Izzy gets in the cage, starts spewing the N word over and over and over and over and over again. Drake is sitting there smiling. You know, Rob's just walking out of the cage. Imagine walking out of the cage. You know, Rob, you just got finished, and you see Israel Adesanya walking into the cage as you're walking out. You kind of look back, continue walking, and then you just hear the N word over and over and over again. I mean, Israel Adesanya looked like a child. He looked like a child tonight, and I hope all of you understand that. You know, people are going to say, oh, well, Dreykus is a racist, so obviously it's going to heat up Israel Adesanya, and Israel Adesanya was drunk, so you can't really hold him that accountable. I don't care how drunk you are. You are always responsible for your actions. And it's no different with Israel Adesanya. I understand, oh, he's the middleweight champion, he's a beloved fighter. I don't care. If Charles Oliveira went up there and started spewing racial slurs at people and yelling at people and interrupting a post-fight interview, you know, right after a finish happened, you know, I would be yelling at Charles Oliveira. I'd be pissed off. You know, I'd take him off. You know, I'd be pissed off at Charles Oliveira. I'd be disappointed in him. You know, it's the same thing. And you know, I'm not sitting here clutching my pearls. I don't want Israel Adesanya to get on camera holding his dog, the same one that he molested on camera. If you haven't seen that video, go search it up. You know, I don't want him holding that dog he molested. You know, with crocodile tears in a YouTube apology video saying I'm sorry ... in the title, and just going on and saying, guys, I apologize deeply. Well, Dana's got a gun pointed to his head. You know, I don't want that to happen. You know, I don't want an apology out of Israel Adesanya. You must, you know, this is a quote from Islam Makhachev when talking about Dan Hooker, and I'll use it here again. You must be held accountable for such actions. He said accusations in his tweet, but for this one I'm going to use actions, obviously, because it wouldn't fit, but Israel Adesanya needs to be held accountable for such actions. That was embarrassing, dude. He looked like a child tonight. I hope all of you understand that. And, you know, that's about it, guys. You know, I really enjoyed the card. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely perfect. I watched it with my dad and my friends, and I had so much fun watching it. So many finishes. Such a great fight. Such a great card. And I hope all you enjoyed this video. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. You guys, I appreciate all the support from you guys. You guys are wonderful. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on the video. What can I do to improve? What are you enjoying about the videos? And what kind of video ideas do you want to see in the future from me or other channels? Let me know. What can I improve on? Anything like that. And I will see you all in the next one.